Hello guys, and welcome to a new WARNO video today by me, Vulcan. In this one I have for you an overview of the Kampfgruppen der Arbeiterklassen Bezirk Erfurt, one of the latest divisions added to the game in the Messena update. Since the division has been out a little while, I'm just going to be going through my deck and we'll take a look at what's good and bad, and maybe make some adjustments based on the games that I've played already. So let's get into it. So we're starting in the Logistics tab. There are the option of the MTLB, which has the 500 supply, the Urals, there's the T813, and then there's the MI26 for supply. I have two cards of the MI26s currently, which do have the 6,000 supply. That does give me the highest amount of supply that I can get from three cards, because these give both 6,000, the T813 gives 5,250 out if you include all three. So this is the most I can get from three cards, because the Ural card gives you 5,000 supply, and then so does the MTLBs, I believe. But having kind of played around with this, I don't think I need two of these MI26s. I'm actually going to put in the card of Urals there. And yeah, the reason being is these are chunky boys. They get spotted quite quickly. They become a target for aircraft very quickly, and just like helicopters and stuff will hunt them down to try and kill them. They do survive very well, but like just the disruption is annoying when you're trying to use them to resupply stuff. And because they are so big, they get spotted, and because of where they are, then like people target the area, and if you're like repairing a tank nearby, then it might get hit by artillery and die because of it or something. But yeah, generally they're very good because you can have them relatively close to the front line, and they act as kind of like a fob that's further up, and you just send your vehicles and stuff back to it to get more ammo and repair. The T813 is just really useful because you can put it into cover, into like forests, for example, and follow your infantry. It's not really got a bad off-road speed, so yeah, it can follow your infantry very effectively in town engagements, in forest engagements, and keep them topped up with ammo, and also resupply them with more men. Same with the Ural, although the Ural's a little slower. The MTLB could be a good choice just because you can like split them up, and also it's armored. But in this case, we're just going to take the Urals for now. Then for command, I have the UAZ, which I think I'm just going to take or keep, because having four of them is actually quite nice, just to not have to take extra cards of commands. But the other options you have are the BTR-50 and the SPW. So moving on to the infantry tab. The infantry tab is quite important in this division because you have a lot of cards, but you have some like really strong infantry that are useful for pushing in the forests, in towns. Not necessarily great for pushing across the open or engaging at range because they kind of lack veterancy, but I'm talking about the K.d.A Schützen here. These K.d.A Schützen have the SPW 152K, which has a machine gun on it, which is actually relatively good for providing fire support at range, particularly in large numbers. They can do some decent damage against enemy infantry, but the unit itself, the K.d.A Schützen, is a 14-man squad with 13 KMS-72s here and the MGK. So really, really strong because of their numbers, basically. And infantry engagements in WARNO right now are very much a numbers game. I expect this will change in the future. Like, you got to take everything I say with a grain of salt, because the infantry balance and a lot of stuff in the game will probably change by the time the game comes out into full release. But for now, because they have high numbers, they are very good. And once they get a little bit of veterancy on them from killing things, they can become super strong, particularly if you keep them like resupplied with more men. So having supply near these guys, having like a leader near these guys initially is very useful, because they basically come with no experience, or like their experience is poor, so they actually get like minus chance to hit, minus rate of fire, you see minus stress resistance. But as soon as you go to like trained, they don't have any of those negative modifiers. So if you have like a leader nearby, you can just negate the negative modifier of the unit immediately. So that's a good tip for using these units. And I have the Pioneer Führer basically here to do that. The other choices I have some mod Schützen in the BTR 50PK. The 50PK again has a machine gun. Multiple of these can really do a decent amount of damage onto infantry, And furthermore, this has 2 front armor, so it can actually survive some of like the lower AP AT weapons in the front armor to stop you getting transport sniped and stuff. Then there's the Panzerjägers. These I feel like are a necessity because at close range, at the 530 meter range, they can really do a lot of damage very quickly to tanks. So if they catch like an M1A1 in the side armor, they will kill it with the 2 RPG-7s. So I really like them. Then there's the Spetsnaz, again very important due to their AT. The RPG-29 with 21 AP at 885 meter range with 80% accuracy is a very good AT weapon, so making good use of these for their AT purpose is important. Also, at close range, they can do a lot of damage because of the AKS-74Us. The Flamethrower, I'm not a huge fan of the Flamethrower, honestly. I have been tempted to change it out, but I'm not really sure what I would change it to. The Flamethrower takes a little while to aim, so against other close-range infantry, it's actually the worst out of them all. Like if you consider like the pioneers from the Germans on the NATO side of things, they have the hand flammetron, which can basically fire instantly, whereas the Flamethrower has like an aim time, which means that you don't really shoot quickly, and then by the time, I think you got to be static in order to use it. Actually, it does have 81% motion, so never mind. But yeah, it does take a little while to move. And I think you just end up getting stunned most of the time before it goes off. I do have these Motschützen with the triple MG. These are there for kind of stunning infantry at range. The triple PKM is pretty good for pinning things at range, so that's basically what it's there for, to stun enemy infantry. And then I've got 2 cards of these PLR faggot squads, which are 16 pen, 2,400 meter range, 8 gems. Really good for picking off enemy tanks in the side armor, also killing APCs and stuff, and furthermore transport sniping. That you just dot these around, just have like so many of them everywhere, and it just makes it an absolute minefield for any tank to move forwards, because at least one of them will always hit in the side armor if you've placed them correctly. That's kind of why I have so many of these. And there are some other interesting squads available in this deck, like the VPV squads here. They're not very good. I don't think like a 3-man leader squad is useful at all, especially if it doesn't have AT. And then there's like the 25-point VPB squads. I don't know how good the AKS-74 is at close range. It's got 30% accuracy, 30% motion, 460 meter range is really short. Maybe in large numbers you could really like do a lot of damage with these, but I'm not convinced. There is the SPG-9 squads. You can also get the UAZs with the SPG-9s. There's the Pioneers. We have the Mordschützenführer, which has the RPG-18. In this case, I take the Pioneer Führer because it has the better AT weapon. That's the reason that I have it. And the Spetsnaz, again, they've got a worse AT weapon. Technically, the rate of fire is better. Like if you look at the rate of fire here, it's only 14, and the Spetsnaz has like 29, so this thing fires super quickly. But I'm just not really like a huge fan of the price for those. Then there's K.d.A Schützen. They have more men, which is nice, but again, no AT weapon. And then you can get more cards of the K.d.A Schützen, but I just can't really fit them in. Moving on to the artillery tab, we have the Malkers. Now, these Malkers are actually kind of terrible. They have a slow rate of fire, they've got not much ammo, and when they hit things, they don't really do much damage. So for 190 points right now, they're not very good. I think they'll probably get balanced at some point where they'll be a lot stronger. So keep an eye out for that. But for now, probably just going to remove these from my deck, and we'll put in something that's just a little bit more reliable. Something like the 122 mils or the 130 mils. In this case, probably the 122 mils would be better, because then we can get like a larger mass of them in order to really saturate a target with artillery fire. I've also got a Smerch in here. These can still be useful for dislodging heavy tanks and other armored pieces, so that's what it's useful for. And then the 120mm mortars, they are pretty much just smoke machines. These things are really good for laying smoke, so make sure to bring at least one card of these. If you want, what you can do, especially in this deck, you could bring all 3 cards of the 120 mils and then just have like absolute chaos when it comes to like mortaring towns or anywhere where there's large areas of infantry or large amounts of infantry. And then if you want to like do a massive K.d.A Schützen push, you can just smoke off a huge wall with your 12 mortars, and it can get pretty nuts. It's really cool. Anyway, moving on to the tank tab. Tank tab is kind of lackluster in this division. You get the UAZ 469 faggots, which I think are worth taking. They're only 20 points, and dotting these around, similar to what you'd do with the ones in the infantry tab, super worth it. So I would definitely take this card. There's the PT76B Führer, maybe a little bit overpriced for what it does. It's just not that useful. Then there's the PT76B, 30 points, Recon tank. It's okay. It's not really going to kill anything. I've also got the T3485 here. I've actually got that in my deck. For 8 penetration, I haven't really had much luck with these. They're always inefficient at range against a lot of things. They're okay for doing damage to APCs, but even 8 penetration is meaning it takes like multiple shots to kill like an enemy marder or something like that. It would take like 3 or 4 shots depending on the distance, which is really bad. So this is not really a card worth taking. Like maybe these would be better off taking, just because of the 10 AP compared to the 8 AP. Also, rate of fire is like way better, so I might actually just add them in instead. Now I look at that. The 85mm AT guns again suffers from low penetration values. Like accuracy is okay, rate of fire is meh. Compared to the T813, or sorry, the PAC MT12 100mm. This thing's just better because it has more AP and it also has the Saklos missile that it can fire out the end. So overall, just a much better AT weapon and is relatively cheap to bring in. Then there's the Malyutka. If you want to go all out on spamming HGMs, then yeah, I definitely recommend taking it. But otherwise, just leave it be. It does look really cool. I like how they've like modeled the internal here. Like the model of this is really cool, and the missiles are great. Like everything about this model is just fantastic. It looks really, really cool. But 17 pen, it's, you know, it's never going to kill anything in the front armor tank wise, but it will definitely be able to like overwhelm units if you're shooting it from multiple directions. There is a T55s available. One of them, obviously, the leader variant. These do have double MGs, so for dealing with infantry at closer ranges, they're not too bad, but again, lacking penetration compared to the T62s. T62s have 16 penetration. They've also got more front armor. The T62M is basically the same, but it kind of trades out its MG for a missile. So more useful for engaging things at range. These are particularly useful for taking out enemy armored cars at range, because 18 penetration is like more than enough generally to like one shot an APC at range, or at least like get it down to really low health so you can just pop it with the main gun or something. But yeah, generally that's what I'd use the Saklos missile for. If you find that your Saklos missiles are firing at heavy targets, just turn them off, because it's just going to get them killed. Because what will end up happening is they'll fire this or reveal their position. Enemy armor will go, oh, it's just an HGM, going to drive forwards, shoot your tank, and it's just going to one-shot you because you only have 10 front armor. And versus something like an M1A1 or a Leopard, you're just going to get killed. So you're going to want to try and rely on, again, side shots or overwhelming force. So getting these all in at once and then just charging forwards or something. That's the only real way that you're going to get good use out of these. For the T62 M1, you can also use it as like a close range infantry fire support weapon. But like the PT is probably going to end up being better for that role, or just use artillery. That's probably better, honestly. So yeah, there we go. That's the tank tab. Bit lackluster, honestly, but potential. Then there's the Recon tab. The Recon tab only has 5 cards. There's the Avkala PT76. There's the BRDM2, the Avkala squad that can come in with like the MI2s, the actual Mi-2 Recon helicopter, and also the Spetsnaz Crew Squads. The Spetsnaz Crew Squads are pretty decent at close range against enemy infantry because of their high accuracy on their guns with the AS-Val and the VSS. And they also have a decent AT weapon, the RPG-27, 530 meter range with 20 round per minute rate of fire and 21 penetration. So at close range, these can demolish vehicles pretty fast. And if you're going to use them for combat, that's why I'd suggest kind of putting them to use as. I also have a card of the Mi-2s. I like having at least one card of Recon helicopters, and then there's the Alpha color. Then I'm bringing in with the UAZs just to kind of supplement my Recon throughout the game. Just have these guys mostly hidden, and I like having the Alpha color here because they have the launcher as well. Although there's not really any other options regardless. The BRDM-2 is just not a very good vehicle because this main gun doesn't really do much damage. These might be worth taking if you want more armor. Moving into the AA tab, again, 5 cards to choose from. The Strela 10M, or 2M, sorry. The Flak ZU-23-2. The Flat SFL, sorry, 52-2. The OSA, and the book. So the books are pretty good. With 2 vet, you get 74% accuracy and 9 HE. I think if these crit, they can one-shot enemy aircraft. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I think that's the case. If it's very similar to like Wargaming Dragon, I'm pretty sure that was the case there. But lovely range. Obviously, your main enemy here is Seed. So make sure you turn them off when you're not using them. Like, if you... Because generally what's going to happen is, if your opponent is smart, they'll bring in a Seed aircraft before they bring in their actual strike aircraft. So making sure that you turn them off preemptively is often a good thing to do. However, don't forget that you turn them off. A good way to get around that is to put them on a group. So if you select your books and you put them onto like group 3 or 4 or something like that, and then whenever you see an aircraft come in, you just press 3 and then you press H, which is like turn on weapons. And I'm pretty sure that's a shortcut anyway, something like that. Might be worth double checking, but you can press a shortcut to turn on weapons and then it will turn on and fire automatically. Well, not automatically, it'd be manually technically, but a good way to do it basically. The OSA, a bit more expendable because it's, well, cheaper, but only a little bit cheaper. Again, similar thing, is going to suffer to Seed, but nice and strong, fast AA at the start of the game that can help you with countering helicopter pushes, which is something that this division kind of struggles with. Since you don't have any AA helicopters that can move forwards at the beginning, or like any particularly fast AA, this is your fastest AA. 108 kilometers per hour road speed, like unless you bring in like loads of the Strela 2Ms to like completely swarm and shut down enemy helicopters at the start, the OSA is your best bet because 7 HE is really strong. It means that 2 missiles is enough to shoot down any helicopter, and it has 63% accuracy with 2 vet. This is really important to bring in at the start to push with your infantry and to catch up with your recon units that will otherwise get overwhelmed by enemy helicopters. Then there's the Flat SFL 57-2. This thing is incredible. It absolutely chews infantry at range and also is really good for shooting down helicopters and aircraft. You get a bunch of these, like 2 or 3 of them in the same place, and nothing will stand a chance if it comes into range. These are really strong at the moment. I expect them to probably get nerfed at some point. As for this gun, I haven't really tried it that much, but I don't expect it to be all that great. And yeah, these 2-man infantry squads, they really suck because of their accuracy. So bear that in mind. Moving on to the Heli tab, we have 4 choices here. The Mi-8 MT with the gun pods. There's the Mi-8 MT with the rockets, 57mm rockets. There is the Mi-8 TB, which has the Malyutka as well as 57mm rockets and the front gun as well. And then the Mi-24P, which has the 8 Kokon missiles and 80mm rockets. So I am taking quite a lot of helicopters. I think helicopters are pretty important for this division to support your infantry. The MA-MT is actually pretty nice early on to, again, support your infantry that is moving forwards, either the Spetsnaz that you use as a recon or like the K.d.A Schützen, for example. They will also be able to shoot down enemy helicopters. Obviously, you need to be careful of enemy AA helicopters, but other helicopters that aren't AA, you can actually shoot down very quickly with these gun pods. So bear that in mind. You do have to get pretty close though. Like the helicopter needs to be like within 1,235 meter range there, as you can see, in order to use its Gatling guns there. So yeah, it's a risk, but initially you just want to be using them as like rocket fire support. Same with the MA8TB, exactly the same thing. Rocket fire support, and then the Malyutka will snipe a transport or tank occasionally. These Malyutkas aren't very reliable, but it's a nice extra to have. And then the Mi-24P is more used, I would say, for its ATGMs, but also the 80mm rockets are really strong. So it's kind of got a bit more anti-armor capability, but obviously you're paying that a little bit extra, and you only get one of them on a card, so it's a bit more of like a special unit, and you probably want to bring it once you know that you've either got AA to protect it, or the enemy has already like kind of suicided most of their like AA planes that they're going to chuck at helicopters. Because in the game at the moment, there is a lot of aircraft that are very capable of shooting down helicopters in one run. So just like gun running it and shooting like one missile into it is enough to shoot it down. And the Mi-24P will suffer from one of those. So yeah, losing 225 point helicopter to like 150 point like air to airplane, it's gonna suck. So be careful with that. And I haven't taken any of these MA8Ts just because I think the MA8TB is worth the extra 15 points for the Malyutka. Then moving on to the Airtab, we have quite a lot of options here actually. So the first one is the MiG-21 BIS. I did use these for a little while, but unfortunately the rockets are just super inaccurate. And the first rocket is kind of bugged at the moment where it just like flies off randomly into the distance. So only 3 rockets really hit the ground near your target and generally not on your target. And in order to do damage with this thing, you've actually got to hit the mark directly. So probably a plane that needs a little bit of a fix, but for now it's just not really worth it. There is the MiG-21 BISs with the 4 250 kilogram bombs. These are very expendable aircraft. If you find your deck has extra activation points in your air tab, these are probably worth as like throwaway early game bombers. Since you get quite a lot of income, you could definitely bring in quite a lot of these very quickly and just like delete enemy infantry squads and make it very hard for the enemy to push you, and also make it easier for yourself to dislodge enemy infantry that would make it hard for yourself to push. So yeah, these can be really nice early on before there's like an abundance of AA. Then there's the MiG-23 MF AT. This has the KH-23M, which is an air-to-ground missile. Has the 30 penetration at 4,240 meter range. Unfortunately, the accuracy of these is really low. So whilst the AP value is really nice, the accuracy is really low. You also only get 20% ECM. So that obviously sucks, but yeah, I don't really know how useful this is. For 150 points, if you were to kill a heavy tank, it would actually be 100% worth it, like an M1A1. So maybe it'd be worth having them in. You get thrown a card, it's not too bad, but you're playing with RNG for sure. And I can't really afford to play with RNG because my RNG is bad enough already. There is the MiG-23 MF AA. I have one of these in my deck. You can get 2 cards of these. They have the 23mm, the 2 long-range 7,067 meter range air-to-air missiles. These are semi-active, and then there's the air-to-air missile, which is fire and forget. Semi-active means that you need to be like generally pointing in the direction of the unit you're firing at in order to hit the mark, so bear that in mind. But the fire and forget missiles are good enough to help shoot down enemy aircraft. So if you see like a expensive Apache, YOLOing one of these MiG-23 MFs into it is probably going to be worth it. So That's what they're used for. And of course, you can shoot down enemy aircraft with them as well. Then there's the MiG-27M, which comes with the 4 500kg bombs. It's okay. I'm not sure if it dives though or not. If it doesn't dive, like, it's fine. Like, it's actually probably a decent aircraft to take. And then there's the MiG-27M with the air-to-ground guided missiles. These are TV guided missiles, I think. But again, semi-active. 57% accuracy is much better than the other ones. So for extra 5 points, these are really, really much better. You just get less on the card. Then there's the Su-17M4 rocket plane. This thing's actually pretty cool, but it's just like not that effective overall. Like, it has this like Gatling gun plus the 122mm rockets, and the rockets can kill like an infantry squad, but because it has to like dive to attack an infantry squad, it will often die after killing one single unit or no unit at all. Particularly if it hits an infantry squad and leaves it on like 1 or 2 health, that infantry squad can then just walk back to supply and get fully resupplied, and then you lose your plane for nothing. So for 210 points, it seems like generally overpriced. The only thing that I could see this being used for quite nicely is like killing enemy aircraft, or sorry, they're not aircraft, helicopters, because it can use its 30 mils on helicopters as well as it having 2 infrared missiles. So yeah, maybe it'd be better off like going for a couple helicopters first before attacking ground units. Then there's the Su-24MP. This is a SEAD aircraft. Pretty big boy. Comes with 2 of the Kh-28 anti-radar missiles, anti-radiation missiles, sorry. 60% ACM is very, very nice indeed. Pretty strong SEAD unit, honestly. It does kind of lack a little bit of range, I would say, for a SEAD, but yeah, it's good. It's a pretty solid SEAD for 230 points. Then there's the Su-24M Napalm. Just generally overpriced. 325 points for this is not ideal, especially since it only has 20% ECM. If it maintained higher ECM similar to the other one, then it would probably be worth it, but otherwise no. 6 500kg bombs is, yeah, a pretty lackluster payload for that price. Then there's the MiG-25 RBF. At the moment I just have this because I'm kind of testing it, but it has 8 500kg bombs, 30% ECM, about 1000 km/h speed. So yeah, seems okay. The price is a bit high for my liking. Honestly, probably going to end up using things like the MiG-21 BIS for the same sort of use case, where I just want to like kill a blob of infantry or something. The MiG-21 BIS would probably just be better because it's faster and expendable. Then there's the Su-22M4 clusters. These are just necessary because they have clusters, and that's one of the things that you're going to be able to use to kill enemy heavy tanks. Like, my Airtab honestly could probably use more AT, because this is one thing that the division in general really suffers with. So if I open up the division as a whole, like, you really don't have many options for Leopard 2A3s or M1A1s or M1A1HAs. The cluster bombers here are basically there to trade with enemy heavy tanks. But having the AT planes that are a bit cheaper, the 150 point ones, would probably be more efficient if you can make them work. But if you're hitting a tank in the front armor, even with a 30 AP missile, I don't think you can one-shot them. So you got to bear that in mind. It's got to be a side shot, really. Anyway, that's it. That's the Kampfgruppe in der Arbeiterklasse in Bezirk Erfurt. And it's a pretty fun division. I actually quite like it. Using the K.d.A Schützen as a screen with plenty of smoke from the 120mm mortars, supporting them slightly with T62s, having HGMs everywhere. Like, pretty good AA, honestly. Really, really good for like making sure that your helicopters stay alive against enemy aircraft. Using your own aircraft in support of your infantry pushes. Like, overall, the division is actually really fun to play. It just really suffers against heavy armor in open field battles. So that's something to bear in mind. But generally, yeah, pretty fun division to play. That's it for now. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed my look at Kampfgruppe in der Arbeiterklasse in Bezirk Erfurt. It's going to be the last time I'm saying it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.